Hello Year 2, this video is all about measurement. What can be measured? If you want to find out how tall is someone, what would you use? What if you want to find out how heavy is this bag of sugar? Or if you wanted to find out how much milk can fit in this container? If you want to measure your body temperature, what do you use? In order to understand this video, you need to be confident in counting in 2s, 5s and 10s. If you still feel like you need a little bit more help, please revisit the tally chart video to use the 100 square to count in 2s, 5s and 10s. In Year 1, you have learned some measurement words. Can you remember any of them? You have used long and short, longer and shorter to describe lengths and heights. You have used words heavy and light, heavier than and lighter than to describe mass and weight. You have used full, empty, half full to describe capacity and volume. In Year 2, we are going to learn how to compare and measure weight, volume and temperature. We will learn how to use balance scales to compare and measure mass, and how to compare and measure mass using different scales. Some things are really heavy, like an elephant. Some things are really light, like a feather. Which object do you think is heavier? Which object do you think is lighter? Weight is measured using a balance or scales. 3 children are going camping. They are taking a tent, sleeping bags and food. The tallest child says, "I will carry the heaviest." And they are suggesting that the shortest child should take the lightest. Who should carry the tent? Who should carry the sleeping bags? Who should carry the food? They will have to use a balance scale. You can even make it at home. All you need is a plank, a rock or a brick. Place the rock or a brick on the ground and place the plank on top in the middle so it is balancing. We use a balance in the following way. We put the 2 items we are measuring on the balance, one on each side. The item that is heavier will be lower than the lighter one, and the item that is lighter will be higher than the heavier one. Look at this balance. The tent is heavier than the sleeping bag. The tent is heavier than the 3 sleeping bags and the food is heavier than 3 sleeping bags. Who should carry the tent? Who should carry the sleeping bags? Who should carry the food? What is heavier, a hammer or a flashlight? What is heavier, the tent or the hammer? Which of the three objects is the heaviest? Which of the three objects is the lightest? If we want to measure how heavy something is, we need to balance the balance scale using a selected object. To weigh our object using bottles, we place our object, the pump, onto one side and add bottles onto the other side until they are both the same, balanced. The object will weigh the same as the number of bottles. Look at this balance. The pump weighs 10 bottles. This picture is showing a balance between a pump and a hammer and 2 bottles. We know that the pump weighs 10 bottles, but how are we going to find out how much does a hammer weigh? We had to add 2 bottles next to the hammer to make it balance with the pump. So we will have to find the difference between 10 and 2. When we want to find the difference, we need to subtract. This balance is showing that a tent and 2 hammers weigh the same. How are we going to find out how heavy is the tent? 1 hammer weighs 8 bottles, so 2 hammers weigh 8 plus 8 equals 16 bottles. Now you can compare numbers to tell which object is the heaviest and which object is the lightest. One object weighs 4 bottles and the other object weighs 7 bottles. Which one is heavier? One object weighs 9 bottles and the other object weighs 7 bottles. Which one is lighter? One object weighs 8 bottles and the other object weighs 6 bottles. How many more bottles do I need to make them balance? One object weighs 4 bottles and the other object weighs 1 bottle. How many more bottles do I need to make them balance? If you go shopping, you can't ask for 8 bottles weight of potatoes. You will have to use units for measuring mass. Those are grams and kilograms. 1 kilogram has 1,000 grams. These children want to make saldo because it's fun to play with. They will need 100 grams of flour, 50 grams of salt, and a spoonful of oil and water. At the bottom, you can see that they have some weights. It says 5, 10, 25, 50 and 100 grams on them. We don't use them as often as we used to because we have different scales now. We use some of them to measure in grams. They can be digital or they can be number scales. And we use some to measure in kilograms. Can you read the scale? How heavy is this gingerbread man? The red arrow is pointing at 30. 30 or what? If you have a look at the number 0 on this wave, you will see that it says G, which stands for grams. So the gingerbread man weighs 30 grams. How much does a leaf weigh? We know that the gingerbread man weighs 30 grams. Leaf and a gingerbread man together weigh 40 grams. So we need to find the difference between 40 grams and 30 grams. If we want to find the difference between two numbers, we need to subtract. Here is a vet trying to record the weight of 3 different hamsters. Now her scales don't have all the numbers, some of them are missing, and it can be really tricky to read those scales. Luckily, we have learned how to use a number line, even if some numbers are missing, so we can help her out. If we count in 1s, 2s, 5s or 10s, it won't fit on this number line. But what if instead of 500 we had 5? We can count in 1s. Because we have 500 in the middle, we actually need to count in hundreds. Now we can write the missing numbers on the scale. Count from 0, 100, 200, 300 grams. You can keep counting from the last label, which is 500 grams. So continue 600, 700. You can continue counting from the last label, which is again 500 grams. Keep counting 600, 700, 800. You always need to set the scale on 0. My scale is also counting in hundreds. You always need to set the scale on 0. Can you read to the closest hundreds how much do these tomatoes weigh? Here are some scales with different numbers. That means that we need to count in different numbers for each scale. have a look at the yellow one. It's counting in fives. It goes 5, 10, 15, 20. But what about the numbers in between? How are we going to work out how much is one dash worth? Look at the orange scale, it's counting in tens. But what about the numbers in between? Do you need to count in twos, fives or tens starting from 0 all the way up to 25? Count from 0, count up to 50. What number do you need to count in?